bless tonight with the lesson. Help us to come out of here wiser and closer to you.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, today we're just going to cover the entire book of Numbers. So let's just start throwing out names now. Numbers it is. So I got a gazillion pages of notes again, so we'll be out of here in a short time. As long as I can find what I have in my notes at the right time. When we think of the book of Numbers, what do we think of?
Numbers.
Numbers. Yeah, multiplication numbers, addition, subtraction, division. Division might be in there. There's certainly multiplication as well. I've always thought it funny that for whatever reason, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Whenever anybody thinks of Numbers, they're like, "Oh, it's such a boring book. There's just so many lists of genealogies in there, things like that." When in actuality, Numbers is probably out of the five, maybe a close second to Exodus, maybe, I don't know, but it's one of the more exciting books in the Pentateuch, I think. There's so much contained in it. So many things happen in the book of Numbers when we look at it. But I did some searches and some things, and what percentage of Numbers do you suppose is like rosters, lists, and census listings?
30.
Because that's what we think of. When we think of Numbers, we think of lists and the census, and we think of rosters and all this stuff, tribe rosters, things like that.
57%.
You have 5 right. It's just in the wrong number. It's in the wrong place. 15% about. 15 to 18% of the book of Numbers are listings. The problem with it is this, that the book is bookended with the census. The original census is in chapters 1 through 4-ish, and then it ends with the census. So like when you start reading Numbers, and this is our short, human, I'm not picking on anybody in particular, this is our attention span problem, right? This is why on a speech you got to start with a hook, right? Because if you don't start with the hook, people check out. You can have the most exciting, awesome speech ever. If they checked out in your introduction, they'll never hear it, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should check out of Numbers just because it begins with listings of tribes, but that's a very human mental problem from that standpoint. But it's bookended. It's got this. I actually one commentator called it the front door problem. That the book of Numbers has a front door problem where when as soon as you start reading, it seems like a bunch of lists. And people stop at the front door. It creates kind of an immediate impression of dense record keeping before the story starts in earnest a few chapters in. Now, there's some repetition in chapter 7. Chapter 7 of Numbers is the second longest single chapter in the Bible. And so it has 89 verses. And it repeats the inventory of the gifts that the 12 tribes had separately each time for each prince. And so this is why some of these chapters get a real bad rap in our mind. Now, I believe the Lord put every verse in the Bible for a reason. So we can learn from every single one of these lineages and all that from that standpoint. But beyond those sections, you think about what happens in the book of Numbers. I mean, we're talking, plagues that end in miraculous things. We're talking about, military conquests. And talking donkeys. I mean, come on. You got a book that has all these things in it, and all we can think about is the census that shows up into it. There's a good breakdown here, and then we'll get into earnest into hopefully what your book needs you to fill in. But when you think of census lists and rosters, chapters 1 through 4 are the first military census, and we'll get into some things related to that. Chapter 7 is the tribal leaders' offerings, the long list of them. Chapter 26 is the second military census of the new generation, because what does Numbers cover for us from the transition to Leviticus into Deuteronomy? What's in Numbers that would require a second census?
When all the old members,
Yeah, when all the old people died, and you say old people, Barb's the one who said it. So if you're 20 years old, you're old.
You're an old people.
20 years and up, those are old people. But now, the old generation, right?
Yeah.
I knew what you
That's
meant.
it.
I'm just deflecting from me, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, an entire generation has to die off the scene here from that standpoint. So you have a second military census of the new generation in chapter 26, and then you start having 33 and 34, the itinerary and boundary lists for from there. And in between all that, we have laws, rituals, and offerings given. You have the Nazirite vow shows up in Numbers. The Aaronic blessing is in here. The Levite consecration. The first. How do I want to word that? It's the first observance of Passover, right? Because the Passover happened in Exodus. The first observance of that Passover happens in here. You have lessons on offerings, on tithes, on the red heifer ceremony, and that's an interesting thing we get into. You get into seasonal feasts, vows. It covers the cities of refuge, all in the book of Numbers. And alongside all of that, all things that everybody would remember, right? You think of all these things that happen, but then alongside all of that, you have, and is it okay if I just call it, I used to say drama, just to be a jokester about it, but you've got all kinds of drama happening in between all of this. Because give me some things that happen in the book of Numbers. I mean, and you can just about guess, if it was drama during the Exodus heading to the Promised Land, it probably happened in Numbers, other than the Mount Sinai instance and some of those. But what's some of the and I've said it 100 times, but drama. What's some of the drama that happens in Numbers that are well-known accounts?
Smiting of the rock.
Smiting of the rock. The second.
The second,
Yeah.
hitting it twice for me.
What else? Big ones.
bronze serpent.
Yep, brazen serpent. Yep, bronze serpent. Right. Yep, that happens.
Aaron's rod.
Yep. The spies, 12 spies, 10 of them say not a chance, right? That happens in here. The rebellion at Kadesh Barnea, Miriam's leprosy. Say, well, what's that one? Well, read your Bible. Amen. Miriam's leprosy happens here. How about when somebody does something against the Lord? It says something blasphemous, and everybody goes, well, I'm going to take a step back, just in case what? Yeah, Korah happens in Numbers, right? The rebellion there. I'm going to step back because the earth's going to open up from that standpoint. And that's, of course, the budding rod from Aaron from there. Logan talked about Moses striking the rock. Am I on your guys' stuff? I'm not sure I am yet, but Balaam and Balaam's donkey happen here. War with Midian happens in this section. So there's quite a bit that we can kind of turn to. And you say, well, it sounds like you just gave us, we could just quit now. You just gave us a whole survey of the book. But you know me better than that. So we look at numbers, and we get, it's a very, dare I say, action-packed account of what is happening here. Numbers, who wrote it? I know that's something you guys, Moses. What'd you think?
I said he copied off me. I just want to make sure he got the right answer.
Oh, okay. Moses, written by Moses. How do we know it's written by Moses?
Because the Bible says so.
Because the Bible says, yeah, over 80 times in Numbers, the claims of Mosaic authorship. Begins with the second month of the second year. How do we know that? Well, on the first day of the second month of the second year, that's verse number 1, in Numbers chapter number 1. Second month of the second year, first day, and written, if you use the certain timeline, it's written about 1451 BC. I love, and everything I read says approximately 1451. I always think it's funny when you say approximately and then you go to a 1, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's approximately 1.216 inches, right? Well, at that point, you're probably not in approximate territory. You're pretty on there. We look at the theme of it, and I know I got to give you that from this standpoint, but it's a good. I like what they put in these books. That the theme found in Numbers is the goodness and severity of God, from that standpoint, you look at the severity that gets placed upon the old generation. That because they turned their back on God, because their trust in Him stopped, God dealt with them very severely. What was, you think of the spies going into the land, why were they, when you think of the passage, they didn't go into the land to decide whether or not to go into the land. That's not what the spies were for, right? They were just sent to go into the land to see what they, where they were going to go. Kind of decide get some help on where they were going to cross over and what they should expect when they went over. And yet the spies decided, well, let's not even go over. Except for how many? 2, right? Who were the 2? Joshua and Caleb. In my head, it's always Caleb and Joshua. I don't know if that's because it's alphabetical order and my OCD is there. But Caleb and Joshua and Caleb were the 2. But of course, the 10 win that fight, and God deals severely with Israel because of that. And they would not believe God. And then those, and I already gave you that number, but those 20 years old and up, God said that He wasn't going to, essentially, He wasn't going to bless the conquest until all those 20 years and up died, right? And He was going to raise up that next generation. But to that next generation, you definitely see the goodness of God and His provision to them, and He gave them an opportunity to believe Him and to receive the blessings. And so God's severity, God's goodness are on display in the book of Numbers. The outline, if you want kind of, and I've got a few of these on my notes here, but you look at 3 distinct divisions in the book. Chapters 1 through 14, and that's a travel from Sinai to Kadesh. That's a focus on the old generation. Then it transitions from chapters 15 to 20 to what they call, a lot of times it's called the transitional era, because this is the wandering in the wilderness until the old generation transitions to the new generation. So that's why they call it a transitional period. So 15 through 20 is in the wilderness, and then 21 to 36 is the travel from Kadesh to Moab with the new generation as they head there. We look at, the book gets its name from the two numberings. And the numberings are based upon those that are able to go to war. And so these would be the war-ready men. So you don't take the number as being the entirety of the Israeli people at that time. You take it as the men, right, the fighting men. And so when you think of those numbers and extrapolate them out, this is a huge crowd of people. The first numbering comes up to, and I think it's in, is that one? I have 46 written on here. Is that chapter 1? Yeah, chapter 1, verse number 46. Talks about them, and so in 45 it says, so were all those that were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war in Israel. So that's the numbering. Even all they that were numbered were 600,000 and 3,550. And you say, well, why did you say it like that? I'm just reading the verse, right? So 603,550, if you need that number parsed out for you. So that's how many able-bodied men, 20 and up, there were. And when you think about that, because what were they counting? 20 years old and up? It puts I don't know, to me it's like a shocking reality of how many people died before they went back to the promised land. Like this is I don't know if you've ever thought about that. Like, God said that this generation, 20 years and up, would pass before the next generation could go in there. At that point, 603,550 men plus their families. 20 years and up, so plus their wives, I guess. Their kids would be, of course, under that 20, otherwise they would have been numbered with them. So you're looking, quite possibly 1 million people had to die before they went to that land. And that's why we say that, God doesn't wink at sin. And this is the severity of God from this standpoint. 1 million people had to die before they would go into the land. Or, that's a guess. Don't quote math on 1 million people. But the assumption would be probably be somewhere close to that. Now, when they get to Moab, and that's in chapter 25, verse 51, you don't have to turn there. I got the numbers written down. You might have them in your book, actually, because I think I got these. Did they give you the numbers?
No.
Oh, they just give you the. So in Moab, when the census is taken, it's 601,730. So about the same strength, which, I don't have a sermon written on that, but it is interesting that the number is pretty close.
What chapter was that?
What's that?
What chapter was that?
Chapter 25, I believe, verse 51. Oh, no. I got those numbers out of your book, actually, so that's,
It's chapter 26,
okay.
51.
26, 51?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my notes are here, and then I'm using the book, the teacher's guide here, and I didn't change any of that. 26? So I will change that in their book, nothing. Wow, my ink pen is going crazy on me here. I feel like Ernest goes to jail. I just don't put it in my mouth. So 601,730, and boy, do I got ink all over me now. They wandered 1 year for, it says, in his book says that Israel wandered 1 year for every day the spies were in the land. That's 40 years. The trip from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea is only 11 days based on Deuteronomy 1:2. But it took them 40 years. And then it took only 40 hours to get Israel out of Egypt. But it took 40, and I love the way they word this, and this is based on the book that we had there, but it took 40 years to get Egypt out of Israel. 40 hours to get Israel out of Egypt, and 40 years to get Egypt out of Israel. I'm going to go over some other things found in here, but I'll continue on with the way that they have it all listed there, in that there's more than a few symbols of Christ in the book here. Somebody come up with some of the pictures. Just pick one out of the book. I mean, you already covered it a little bit when I asked what events happened.
Bronze serpent.
Yeah, yep, that bronze serpent, that brazen serpent, that's Numbers chapter number 21. And of course, brought up in the New Testament where? Conversation
John
with
3.
Nicodemus.
John 3.
John 3, yep, John 3. And that really confirms it to be Christ, a picture of Christ. Just as looking at the bronze serpent brought physical healing from the poison and salvation from the poison, looking to Christ and faith brings spiritual salvation from sin. So we have the brazen serpent, that's Numbers 21, verses 1 through 9, if you're taking notes on that. What else? What else supposes a type of Christ in the book of Numbers?
The rock giving water.
The rock
Giving water.
giving water.
Life-giving water of Christ.
But it was, and that one, just remember, was a broken image of Christ.
Correct.
Right? That's why Moses was not allowed to go into the promised land, because he smote the rock a second time. So yes, it was, and I guess what I would say is it was supposed to be a huge type of Christ, in that you only had to speak to it, because it had already been broken once, right? It had already been smitten once. But yeah, I would say certainly it's a type of Christ, albeit broken. So it helps you understand that Christ doesn't have to die on the cross again. So there's a good understanding from that type. So good. Yep, that's good. What else do you suppose? How about in Numbers 9, you have the entirety of the nation is led by a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. And certainly we see a type of Christ in that in the dark it was a pillar of fire, and Christ is the light of the world. But Christ is our guide, whether it's dark out or whether it's good times, whether it's bad, whether it's dark out. Christ will lead his people through life. John 8 talks about him being the light from that standpoint. Numbers 17, Numbers 20 talk about Aaron and his priesthood, and Aaron being the high priest. And that's who they had to go to commune with God, whereas now Christ has become our high priest. And so there's no more need for an earthly priesthood, because we have a priest after the priesthood, of course, of Melchizedek. But the high priest in Israel was always supposed to be pointing them towards Christ. That you went to the high priest for absolving of the sin. And so Christ is that high priest from that standpoint. There's an interesting look at, of course, and here's another one related to this, Aaron's budding rod. It's a type of Christ. In that it's a type, what type, what is the Aaron's budding rod? Why would I say that's a type of Christ? It guided him, well, and it was truth, right? It separated truth from falsehood. But the very act of it budding was a miracle, because it was dead. Yeah, and it was, so it's also a very powerful picture of resurrection. That the rod budded, and it was almond from the account, but it pictures Christ's resurrection. from there. I was thinking as well, we'll go on to the next one. I'll be talking too long if we go too far into anything else. There's a couple of other things, a couple of others in there. Numbers 35. How about Numbers 35? What do they cover?
It was the sacrifice too.
Sacrifices, the Levitical priesthood showed some of the sacrifices, yep. Most of the sacrifices were covered in fully in Leviticus. But you do have sacrifices that continue on, of course, in Numbers from that standpoint. But that's why, the sacrifices do point to Christ and wherever they had shown up in here as well. But what cities were set up?
Cities of refuge.
Cities of refuge. Cities of refuge, and that's chapter 35, Numbers 6 through 12. And, certainly those cities of refuge are a type of Christ. And they would flee to the cities of refuge. And of course, Christ is our ultimate refuge and hiding place from righteous judgment and the wrath of the law. Because that's what those cities of refuge were. If I accidentally killed somebody, or something happened that it appeared that I killed them, their next of kin would, and rightfully so, and that's what the scriptures talk about, might try to take vengeance upon me to avenge the one that had been killed. But if I felt like it was accidental, then I could run to a city of refuge and go into that city of refuge. Now, if I did it in cold blood, right, did the city of refuge help me? No, I got thrown out, right? But from this refuge standpoint, this hiding place from righteous judgment, right? Christ was there. Is a picture of that, to hide us, to hold us, right? Because when we accept Him, His righteousness is on our account, and we are no longer, I guess I'll use the word culpable, but culpable for our sin because He paid the debt.
What about in chapter, hold on, I gotta find it again real quick, sorry. 24,
Yep.
Balaam's talking about the star coming out of Jacob, the scepter shall rise out of Israel.
Yep.
Referencing Jesus, the bright morning star.
Yep, 24:17, star and the scepter, points to Christ as a ruling king. And then that kind of cross references a little with Revelation 22, 16. I gotta be careful not to get ink all over my Bible here. 22:16, I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. 22:16. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So when we look at, and we'll cover this here, Christ in the book, from that point of view. We kind of a little bit of a deep dive into each one of these. I said there was three different areas, transitions, or three different aspects of the book. Part one, I called it the old generation to the failure at Kadesh. You look at the things that happened in part number one, and then we'll just cover these, and if there's any questions, we'll go from there. But the survey will help. I think this will help with looking at a survey of the book. 1 through 4 were the first census. This is, again, we talked about this. God numbers the men of fighting age. Now the Levites are numbered and assigned specific duties. And anybody remember what the specific duties are that were assigned in Numbers for the Levites? Yep. The tabernacle, not just how to bear it, but that's on there. This group, this group, this group, this group. but also how to dismantle it properly, how to set it up, how to transport it. Right? So the Levites are taught how to do all these things from that standpoint, and how to transfer the tabernacle. They're also given, chapters 5 through 9, we find the laws given for the camp, both from a cleanliness standpoint. And we missed one thing earlier, and that's okay. Well, maybe I mentioned it, maybe I didn't. We'll have to check the tape, I suppose. We have the laws concerning restitutions of wrong between folks. We have the Aaronic blessing in Numbers chapter number 6, 24, 25, and 26. We have the second Passover observance. And then also in Numbers chapter 6, we're given a very important vow. And what vow is that? The rules concerning it. There's not very many vows in the Bible, so just the Nazarite vow. Yep. Numbers chapter 6, we're given the Nazarite vow. And so did I mention that earlier as one of the things that happens? Okay. So I don't have to check the tape because you're all saying I didn't mention it. But yeah, so you have the Nazarite vow, Numbers chapter number 6, that is shown as well. Chapters 10 through 12 is the departure from Sinai. So 1 through 10, they're still there. 10 through 12 is the departure. They use trumpets to direct movement. Begins under the pillar of cloud and fire. And of course, what happens right when they leave Sinai? Immediate complaining, right? Yeah, immediate murmuring. It's like when you go on vacation with your kids. Are we there yet? Right? And you get in the car. It's immediate. Like you're 2 blocks from the house. Well,
It's the food part.
what's that?
It's the food part.
The food part. Yeah, they leave Mount Sinai and they immediately start complaining about everything. God's only supporting us with sustenance each and every day, but you know what He didn't give us? He didn't give us any meat.
We had fish and meat.
Yeah. And so then of course you have those accounts, where they want meat, at Kibroth Hattaavah. And then of course you have the rebellion of Miriam and Aaron, right? The leprosy of Miriam from that. And so, immediately, depart from Sinai, let's complain about it. And then, of course, you have Kadesh Barnea, and that's the chapters 13 and 14. That's when the 12 spies survey Canaan for 40 days. And, of course, they bring back what the scriptures call an evil report. Oh, there's giants there. Oh, there's fortified cities there. They put everybody into panic. And, of course, Caleb and Joshua and Caleb both said, who cares if there's giants there? God said that He'd give it to us, right? Don't focus on the giants. Focus on the grapes that they're the size of your head, from that standpoint. So, which I didn't mention in the beginning. Who doesn't want to read about a book that have grapes that size, right? And honey and all that. Complain about food, right? Well, think about numbers. But then, of course, God sentences the old generation to wander for 40 years, 1 year for every day the spies explored the land, until all age 20 plus perish from that standpoint. So during that time frame, chapters 15 to 20, these are the years of wandering. And really, the point that we brought about, that it should have only been, what was it? I got my notes for this stuff here. 10 days to get from one to the other. It took them 40 years. That's why we would call this kind of aimless wandering, because they could have went directly there, but the Lord had them wander until that generation died off. But chapter 15, as we look through this transition area, as they're wandering, we have the preservation of the law on the Sabbath in chapter 15. And they were given laws for when they eventually entered the land. Can you imagine being a part of the older generation, and God has sentenced you to death, but God is still cultivating the next generation right alongside of it. You know, I wonder how much really regret some of those folks had as they had to listen to, you know, God's will as they walked into the land. You know, when you take the land, these are the things that you're going to do. And really, probably, just supposing this, that they probably had some regret from that standpoint. But God's covenant, his promises remained intact despite the human failure. So chapter 15, laws for when they eventually enter the land. 16 and 17 is the rebellion of Korah. Korah, Dathan, Abiram challenged the priestly authority of Aaron and the leadership of Moses. And of course, the earth swallows their household. Fire consumes 250 of the leaders there. Then Aaron's rod buds with ripe almonds. And of course, that proves his divine appointment as the high priest from there. But you know, that whole rebellion of Korah, you know, is you know, it sounds like it's a Hollywood movie now. You know, but this is God's divine judgment, right? Earth swallows them, men consumed by fire, dead rod, you know, budding with ripe almonds, all of these things. 18 and 19 covers the duties of the priest, but it also covers the support of the Levites, how to support them with the tithes, and some other sections that are in there. Chapter 20, we hit the Miriam dies, and then they're in Meribah, and Moses strikes the rock in anger instead of speaking to it, and that's where he gets barred. So that's chapter 20, the sin of Moses. And then in that same chapter, after judgment is passed upon Moses, Aaron dies on Mount Hor. And then his garments, his priestly garments, are passed down to the next in line, Eleazar. So we have Eleazar, we have the establishment of Aaron's priesthood from generation to generation, established in part 2 of the book of Numbers. And then we hit the third part. This is the, you know, if you're a Star Trek fan, this is the next generation. But we have the new generation, and this is they start to march towards Jordan. And during this time, you know, they're not without fault, because one of the first things that happens, chapter 21, we already talked about it, is a brazen serpent, right? Bronze serpent. More complaining brings about the fiery serpents. And of course, God commands Moses to make a bronze serpent on a pole. And then Israel has a battle after that. They defeat King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan. When does the brazen serpent, I know we mentioned it in John, where else does that show up? The brazen serpent in the scriptures. Nehushtan, right? Where's that scripture from? Who was king? He's one of the great revival kings. No, close. Not Joash, but Joash is, so there's two kings, blue fingers, two kings that are generally associated with being the greatest of Hezekiah. So during the reign of Hezekiah, they had set up that brazen serpent as an idol, and he called it Nehushtan, and said that it was just a piece of brass. And he tore down the high places. Both Hezekiah and Josiah were the ones that did the most to try and bring Judah back to the Lord from that standpoint. You could preach a sermon on revival from either one of those kings' reigns, but maybe I didn't have that in my notes, but I was pretty sure it was Hezekiah that took the Nehushtan and melted it down. And so it's just a piece of brass, so that's what he wanted them to know. So we had the bronze serpent, the victories, 22 to 24, because of the victory over the Amorites and the victory over the Bashan. We had the king of Moab, and he said, you know what, they're beating these guys. We're going to have to get something on our side. So then he hires Balaam. And what a fantastic account of Balaam and Balaam's donkey, where he keeps beating the donkey. And the donkey's like, what did I do to you? I mean, that's paraphrasing. Like, don't you see that angel in the front of you? But no, again, paraphrasing. But pretty close, right? It's pretty close. Oh, just missed it. But Balaam and Balak. So Balak was the king of Moab. He hires Balaam to curse Israel. And it's a fantastic. I don't mean to play light on this, but it's like some of the best like sitcom comedy you could possibly have. That Balaam stands up and he's like, all right. It's almost like there's a couple of different ones, Lyle and Harding and Abbott and Costello routine almost. Because Balak is like, all right, here's what I need you to do. I need you to curse these people. I need you to make sure that they can't win. And so then Balaam stands up and he goes, oh, Lord, give victory to the Israelites and bless them. And the king's like, wait a minute, what? I just told you not to do that. But God intervenes each and every time. And Balaam, every time he tries to curse Israel, he proclaims a blessing upon them from God. And so that's why I hope you don't feel like I'm playing light with the scriptures, but it's like this. It's like almost you can't write a better routine than that. I mean, think of what Balaam's thinking. He's like, what did I just say? Like, this guy just, he's gonna murder me for what I just said. No, but every attempt turns into a blessing, and not only that, but he prophesies of the coming of Christ. The future star and scepter out of Jacob. And so every attempt at Balaam to curse Israel is thwarted. But of course, Balaam is judged at the end. Chapter 25, we have the apostasy at Baal Peor, and that's because Balaam, since he can't do anything, he advises Moab to essentially try to tempt Israel into immorality, right? Sexual immorality. He says, here's how you can defeat them. And then a plague kills 24,000, right? Until Phinehas, Phinehas, executes judgment, and that, of course, earning a covenant with the perpetual priesthood there. But there's apostasy at Baal Peor because Moab goes in, essentially stops fighting them, and seduces them from that standpoint. And that's 24,000 die of a plague because of that. It's crazy that the battles that they were fighting. But once the enemy changed tactics, and once it was no longer a head-on battle, they fell easily. And that's where from a preaching standpoint, that's where we have to be careful. Is when the world doesn't appear to be actively fighting against us, because that's what happened. Moab put down their arms and decided to seduce them, and that's where the world is at its biggest danger, when it's in a seducing standpoint. It's easy to see the war horses, right, and the siege engines, and then the men mounted, but when suddenly it's friendly, right, and is enticing, that's when you fall, right, oftentimes. So, plague killed 24,000 of them because suddenly the battle was done, and they're like, oh, we're just going to commingle now. So that's 25. And then we hit 26, numbered on the plains of Moab. This is the second census, where the 601,730. And just remember that of the 601,730, how many of them would have been counted in the first census? 2. Yep, that's right. Caleb and Joshua. So there's only 2 out of that. So 601,728 new men are counted, and then Caleb and Joshua are there. And then we have 27 through 36. Another major event kind of happens in here. There's regulations for daily, monthly, and seasonal offerings. We had talked about that a little bit in some vows. We have a couple of major things. Of course, the establishment of 6 cities of refuge, we already discussed that though, for accidental manslayers. But we have, this is where Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. And you know, if you ask me that on an off day, I'm always struggling to remember Reuben, Gad, and half-tribe of Manasseh. I don't know why, but Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe, what's significant about them? They stayed. Yeah, they decided not to cross. Like, we're going to stay on this side of Jordan. You know, you all go have fun. But what's the command to them? So the Lord, in essence, and Moses acquiesced to the request under what stipulation? Yeah, you still got to send your fighting men. Right? You can stay over here for, you know, you'll eventually stay over here, but you have to come fight with us. And they do agree to that. So they help their brothers. They help them to conquer Canaan, or they promise to help them conquer Canaan. So Reuben, Gad, half-tribe of Manasseh, that whole account is here. And then we have another kind of important account that we're given within these chapters, and that is Moses' successor is named, and that's Joshua. And so we have the account of the leadership of the people being passed down into, or to Joshua, as Moses is not going to be able to go in with them. So, well, that's the end of my notes. What else do we have? I'm afraid to pick up my ink pen to write anything down. I'll just hold it up here, and then my handwriting will be better.
I have underlined in my Bible here Numbers 24, verse 16 and 17. I mean, I must have heard a sermon on this some time ago, but I have noted here 1,400 years before Christ.
Oh,
I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I have noted there.
that would be pretty.
And the sermon was on seeing a star or times of Christ.
Yeah, that'd be pretty. Where did I have the 1451? So yeah, that'd be pretty close.
When you
From that.
trace the genealogy, you know, from
Yeah,
Genesis, it's not far away. It just amazes me what these evolutionists really say, like
millions. of
billion-year
years.
gap
Yeah,
in some of their theories.
yeah, that's crazy. Well, and you look at, you know, the numbers of the fighting men, you know, 600,000 die, and yet they still have 600,000 40 years later. Right? So the numbers are not hard to stack up from that. Oh, it would take millions of years for this. Well, math proves it doesn't. Yep. Yep, that's the promise. All right. Anything else?
The angel that talked to Balaam, that calls him the angel of the Lord, that'd be another Christ.
Yeah, I believe that almost without fail, angel of the Lord with the L-O-R-D in all capitals is a Christophany, or theophany, I guess, rightly by the definition. But yeah, that would be, and then of course it stands to reason that then Balaam prophesies of Christ after seeing him. Yep.
Why wasn't Balaam surprised when his donkey started talking to him?
Yeah. That's a good question. Right? You know, because yeah, you'd think he's mad at it. The donkey's talking to him. You know. Maybe there's something going on.
Mad that it didn't.
Why wasn't he surprised? I don't know that he wasn't, but it is kind of funny.
He just goes on with the conversation with
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, maybe, what was it somebody said yesterday? Probably partaking too much of the communion wine. Is that what they said yesterday? Somebody said that yesterday. I can't remember who said that. That just cracks me up. I called thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, thou hast altogether blessed them these 3 times. Like, what is your problem, baby? Anything else? John, do you have?
You know, when you get done, I would like to give you my opinion about the cancer treatment that I've been through.
Yeah?
I've been studying this for 20 years, more or less. I make suggestions. Most people don't listen to me. I avoided any arguments. I even talked to doctors.
Yeah.
I've been taking what they say will poison you. Apricot fits, which is Mayfield.
Yeah.
And they're trying to say, you only take them several, like 7, because it has a compound that's cyanide.
Mhm.
That I take 50 every day.
5-0.
Look at, am I poisoned? Cyanide?
Yeah.
Okay, what happens is the cyanide is locked into a compound. It won't come unlocked unless it's in the presence of a tumor. Then it poisons it out and it shrinks down. This is scientifically proven. And you can't talk to any conventional doctors about this
Yeah.
because they'll come up with all kinds of excuses. What happens with convention is it weakens the body. Radiation and chemo poisoning. Okay, that's fine, it gets, if people think that's great, it gets rid of your tumor, cancer tumors. But in weakening it, we are carrying bacteria that's just waiting for the body to get weak. Then it goes to work. This is what happened to Linda.